You can hear the songbirds singing, and you watch the clouds roll by. Then you're walking in the valley as the sun shines in a clear blue sky. You're welcoming your loved ones, and you can't believe your eyes. Yes, this earthly paradise was just around the corner. There's a house down in the valley and a house high on the hill. There is singing by the river as the water flows and turns the mill. The golden fields are waiting, let the harvesting begin. Once the world we're living in was just around the corner. It's great to share with friends who care the things that we look forward to. Now every tear has disappeared. The world is young and life is new. There's the sound of happy voices and the scent of newborn hay. Now you're calling to your loved ones as you start another perfect day. Then we thank our God Jehovah for his tender loving care. Yes, the blessings we all share were just around the corner. And every day I smile and say, how good to see your happy face. 'Cause once it seemed I only dreamed that you'd be in my warm embrace. Waiting round the corner is a world I long to see. It's a promise from Jehovah. It's a guaranteed reality. And it's hard to get downhearted when I think of what's in store. It's the day I'm waiting for, and it's just around the corner.
Excellent.
Wow, guys. Brilliant.
Well done. Well done. They managed to learn this in 2 days. So Kira learned how to play that and sing it in 2 days along with Aiden. So, I mean, amazing. Amazing, guys. Amazing. I'm going to start off with some funny stories. This shirt is one of them. Not this shirt in particular, but the fact that I'm wearing a white shirt. It is white, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because when I was younger, Mum very kindly dyed my white shirts pink. I didn't see them. It wasn't until I was in the office and a client said, well, why are you wearing a nice pink shirt? I'm like, I'm not, it's white. When I had some light, it was pink. She dyed all of them pink. So to this day, I don't actually own any white shirts. I own one white shirt, which is for my kilt, which I insist on washing on its own, just in case it gets dyed, because I can't see it. So just but she did stuff like that. She was hilarious. I remember when I was about 14 or 15, and at the time I was about the same height as Malcolm, and I was sitting in the kitchen just minding my own business doing something, and I noticed me her she'd come in, and all of a sudden she squeezed my bum. She's like, what are you doing that for? The shock in her face, she thought I was Malcolm. She went bright red, massively embarrassed. But that's the stuff she used to do. It was just her all over. We all know Mum liked to bake. She was always baking stuff. Her one nemesis, which she always struggled with scones. Every time, she could never make a perfect scone. And one day, she did this. She made this perfect scone. It was great. It was perfectly rosy. It was gorgeous colour. She was delighted. So in the celebration, she got some cream, made us all cups of tea, had it all out. We all took a bite. Didn't taste good. It tasted vile. She put salt instead of sugar. So quickly we went to get our tea to drink the tea. There was salt in the tea and all. We were like, oh! So yeah, it was a massive failure. but we all shared in it, so it was fine. The same with pancakes. Becky mentioned this the other to me, and it amused me. She always made great pancakes, loved them. But she always managed to make pancake on Pancake Day. We're not sure why. She always said it was a mistake, but I don't know. I think it was done on purpose. Well, I've got lots of other stories, but before we go into this, I want to bring in Jackie, who's got some nice stories from obviously when Mum was growing up, up until later on. If we can unmute Jackie.
I think you might have to press it again to ask to unmute.
And Jackie, you'll have to confirm to unmute.
Yes.
Can you
You're
hear
on mute from our end.
Can you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
can
we
hear you.
you.
All right, lovely.
Speak up so we can.
Okay, I'll speak up.
On you go.
Well, as little girls growing up together, we moved around a lot because Dad was in the forces. And so we lived in quite a few different areas, and we both found it hard to make friends. So I think that's why we really grew up so close and did everything together, because we had each other. We were best friends. She was always very tolerant, very patient, and very kind, all the things that I was not. I always, one of my earliest memories was that we ransacked Mum's wardrobe. We tried on all Mum's dresses and put on her high-heeled shoes and clip-clopped around the house, having tremendous fun. Poor Mike was usually excluded from all our games because he was a baby and he was a boy. But this one day, we were dressed up in Mum's clothes. Mum was very tolerant. She didn't mind. We were dressed up in Mum's dresses and high heels, having a lovely time singing and dancing. And Mike came through. Mike would only have been about 3. And he was crying. He wanted to join in. And I said, no, you're a crybaby and you're a boy and you're not joining in. Well, Carol being Carol, she was always so sweet and nice. And she said, right, hang on. So she went through and she found some clothes that I'd grown out of, some dresses, and we dressed Mike up as a girl. Sorry, Mum, you probably don't even know this. Sorry, Mike, I hope you
Doesn't
don't
remember.
it. But we dressed Mike up as a girl and we put ribbons in his hair and bows and things. And then he looked a really pretty girl, actually. So we let him join in.
I didn't know she was going to say this, by the way, so it's not my fault.
That was when I just remembered last night how we dressed him up as a girl.
That's why
He says it explains a lot.
But we grew up loving dance and music. Mum and Dad taught us to rock and roll. Mum and Dad were great dancers and they taught us to rock and roll. And there was one year, our great aunt Alice, who was mad on rock and pop music, Auntie Ali, she bought us one year a little transistor radio each. Now, back in the 60s, a transistor radio was the in thing. Not many people had one. And we used to race home from school every night up to our bedrooms to rock and roll to our transistor radios. And poor Mum, the noise on the floorboards must have been horrendous, but Mum never moaned at us. But we shared a bedroom, always. Different house, different bedroom, but we still had each other. Carol had 2 loves in her life. Her biggest love was nature. And on the shelves of our bedroom were all sorts of bones and skulls and horrible things. I hate them. So I would lie in my bed looking at these skulls, and I didn't want to fall asleep with a sheep's skull looking at me, so I would roll over, only to look at her second love of her life, which was David Cassidy. Now, youngsters probably won't know who David Cassidy is. He was a pop star and an actor in that time. And
I do, but I'm old.
Did you know that, David Cassidy?
I do.
I used to tease her relentlessly because I hated David Cassidy, and I think I ended up drawing on her poster, which annoyed her.
Oh, me.
But I still used to watch The Partridge Family on a Saturday morning with her. David Cassidy starred in The Partridge Family, so we watched that. One of Carol's favourite pets was a tortoise. We had this tortoise called Fred, and she loved this tortoise, and she diligently watched Blue Peter to see how you put them to hibernate, and then you wake them up from hibernation and all the things you have to do to a tortoise. And there was one day she took Fred out to cuddle. She was always cuddling Fred. She found an egg in his bed. So Fred was actually Frida. Tortoise had laid an egg, and no matter how Mum and Dad explained to her that there was no way this egg was going to hatch because you needed a Fred and a Frida at the same time. But she still insisted on putting it in a bucket of sawdust and putting it by the roaring fire.
Oh.
And after a week, she kept nurturing this egg. And then after a week, it exploded and it stunk to high heaven.
Oh,
It was rotten, but she tried. Fair play to her. She tried to get this egg to hatch. I think this time of year, I always think of Carol, especially on Christmas Day, not because we celebrate Christmas, but because our favourite film was White Christmas. And back in those days when we were kids, you only had 3 television channels. I know the youngsters find that hard to believe, but there was just the 3 channels. And White Christmas was always on the television at stupid o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day. And I would nag the life out of her to set her alarm so that she would wake me up, and we'd creep downstairs because Dad said, "You must not wake us up." We'd creep down the stairs, get our cornflakes, and we'd sit and watch White Christmas. And we never ever woke Mike up to join us because he wouldn't have been quiet enough. We used to watch that. So I always think of Carol on Christmas Day, and I think it's still on Christmas Day now.
yeah.
But even after we were married and had kids of our own, we still tried to make time for each other, and we'd dump the kids off at school and go back to either her house or my house and have a cup of tea. And there was one morning, it was a dreary, horrible, wet morning, and one morning she had the radio on and Cyndi Lauper came on. So we both simultaneously grabbed a hairbrush and started singing along to Cyndi Lauper, "Girls Just Want to Have Fun."
Oh.
We did. We always had fun. She was a good fun girl, Carol was. Once a week, the 3 of us, Carol, me and Claire. You probably remember, Claire, our weekly Jane Fonda workouts. But we took it so seriously. We had the full regalia. We had the tights, the leg
I
warmers,
can remember it too.
headband. And we would do about an hour and a half workout of Jane Fonda. And we were on the advanced edition by that time.
Oh, yeah.
And then we would collapse in a sweaty heap on the settee, and we would have a cup of tea, and then we would stuff ourselves with cake.
Oh,
Thank you, Jackie.
nice one. Thank you, Jackie.
I do remember the Jane Fonda stuff. It was a common thing, and every time now we hear the Jacksons, "Can you feel it?" That's all I can think of. One more. Yeah, you can't help but think of that. It's even if we were all told to be quiet and sit in the room. Nana's got some stories. Obviously, we know Mum was a nature lover. I'm going to read a bit this one because I don't want to get this wrong. But Mum always loved animals, as we know. She could never bear to see an animal, no matter how big or small, to suffer. She found a field mouse one day. It was near dead, and blue bottles had already started laying eggs in it. She picked out all the eggs and tried to keep the little mouse alive. Unfortunately, it did die. Close to where they had found the mouse, they found a nest with loads of little babies. and not be able to bear the thought of them orphaning them, being left to die, she insisted that Nan and Grandad take them to a vet. The vet told her that the babies would most likely die, but gave her instructions on how to feed them and nurse them. Every single baby lived, and she managed to get them all released into the wild, full of health, thanks to her nice and loving care. A similar thing happened to a stag beetle. A poor stag beetle was found injured, but by all accounts, it was a monster of a beetle, massive in size. Mum carried it around in a tin that it could barely fit into. Against the odds, this too she nursed back to health. Sadly, I can't say I've passed on the same gene to myself or my daughter. I remember when Kira was about 4, we were in the woods with my mum, and we found some tadpoles. Naturally, Mum was in there encouraging Kira to hold one and everything else. Kira's reaction was, kill it! Which, as you can imagine, didn't go down overly well. And obviously, Mum said, like, "Oh, you must never hurt an animal." But we laughed, and it was just, yeah, I was like, "Thanks, Kira. Well done, girl." Mother's daughter. Another story from Anna. Naomi was 3 and was to be Anna's flower girl. Mum was concerned about her as a 3-year-old Naomi would very rarely follow a plan and could be very unpredictable. Mum was really concerned that Naomi would not walk down the aisle. Anna assured her that they truly did not mind if Naomi went and ran down. Naomi, with her beautiful curls and pretty dress, would be a pleasure to see, and even if she ran down the aisle screaming and carrying on, it didn't matter. First challenge they faced was in the morning of the wedding with the flowers. No way was she going to hold these flowers. Not a chance. Mum despaired. However, thanks to Andrew and his obvious love for animals, he managed to convince her that the little bug she had in the matchbox needed to be carried on the flowers. Now the flowers had a purpose, so she agreed to hold them. Next challenge, Kingdom Hall. Jodie and Naomi were to walk down, then Elaine, then Anna, then Grandad. Much to everyone's surprise, the music started, and with perfect timing, Jodie and Naomi set off, followed by Elaine. Their pace was perfect, and they smiled beautifully. Unfortunately, there was a delay, and Anna forgot to walk down the aisle because there was my mum in absolute floods of tears, so proud that Naomi had walked down the aisle with no issues, and they completely forgot to walk down the aisle. It just shows what prayers and bugs can do. Sheila kindly shares the story. Thank you, Sheila. Sheila told me that she enjoyed working with Mum when she was at the butchers in Allness, Munro's and Son. Mum hated serving the black pudding, but Grandad said, "It's part of the job, so it's okay. You can do that." Sheila and Mum had great laughs there, although Mum hated watching Alistair, one of the proprietors, skinning and gutting the rabbits, which, as you can imagine, from the amount of rabbits Mum had, it would have been an absolute horror to see. She has asked me to say that Mum was a great part of her life in the 70s and felt so welcome in the Hooker family, even if Grandad did tip her out of the bed when she wouldn't wake up. And Sheila often got the blame for Mum's being led astray. My mother was very artistic, always artistic. When we were young, she did lots of paintings, which I used to watch, and one day I noticed the painting she had, and she had it upside down. And I was like, "Mum, why did you paint it upside down?" Turns out she couldn't paint trees normally, it had to be upside down. Great trees, but that was one of her little.
She was really good at
She was really
trees.
good at trees, but she had to do them upside down. Mark always has fond memories of when we were at Joss Street. Always made him welcome, came round. Even if he did have to put up with me losing my temper and generally chasing him around the gardens Not that I could catch him because he was too fast for me anyway.
Welcome to our world.
Yeah, but Mum was always diplomatic. Always made me apologise to Mark, even though I didn't feel I should do. But yeah, it was usually me and not him. And also how Jack used to have lunch with Mum on most Fridays, and how her love of animals rubbed off on all of his children, which is pretty much on all of us, really.
Yeah.
Lorna, I was going to call her Pheobe, but you are a Regan now. Hello. So Mum about 2 years ago, and how like she never left her, and obviously Lorna hadn't seen her in years, and she was always that way. If she had seen someone, she would generally say hello and give you a big hug. Lorna obviously has fond memories of her inviting her around to our gatherings, which must have been hard, knowing that there'd be an antisocial Paul there and generally be in misery and not say much.
We were used to it.
Exactly. At this point, Nan would like to say something about Mum, and I think so. Do you want to share your story
About the pioneer.
about pioneering?
Yes, Carol took to the truth like a duck to water, and always loved going on the ministry and going out. And I remember one Christmas Day, she wanted to go out because the congregation were going to meet, and so she went out. I didn't go with her. I don't know why, nor her dad. Anyway, she went out on her own and got to the group, and nobody came. So she thought, well, I'm going to go. So she went, and on the way back, I saw her coming up the path, and she had a straight back and was marching resolutely up the path. And as soon as she came in, she burst into tears. And I said, what's the matter? She said, oh, I went up this path and all these people were pointing and laughing at me. She said, I didn't show it, but of course, once she got home, she broke down and cried. But that was Carol. She's always very determined and very sincere and loved the truth.
Thankfully, she had help after that. Moira and Janice and David Hopkins, they always have fond memories. They were out pioneering, going in service, especially when they went to Bonar Bridge. And Mum, without fail, would always buy some hula hoops from a little shop in Bonar Bridge. Always had to have it.
Don't blame her.
Don't blame her. And Mum was always very good when they went service and invited everybody around to have something to eat afterwards. And everybody was amazed when she canned them this cake in seconds, and it was warm. It was a microwave cake. Oh, at the time, nothing new now, but at the time it was the thing to have, wasn't it? And not many people had microwaves, so everybody was very impressed, to say the least. One of the others is obviously Mum and Malcolm used to do Frank and Betty Spencer parties, weddings and Kayleys. They also did Clive the Fearless Birdman, which Daniel and I recreated on the 25th anniversary, which was fun. And those who got to witness it saw me launch myself off the stage into a heap, and then my mum thinking, oh dear, he's hurt himself. I probably thought, what an idiot. But
we all thought that.
We all thought that, exactly. But it was a good memory. Jonathan Davis' last memory of Mum was her taking a little teddy bear back to a child who was sick. That they had met one day in the ministry. And before she died, she managed to give that teddy bear to this little girl, so which is Mum all over. We know Mum loved bears, and the majority of us do have bears that Mum's given us. Ethan, Mark's son, got his bear out when he saw that Mark was upset, and said, "Don't be sad, Dad. Here, hug one of my bears, and you can remember her by." And I think we could all do that, because probably most of us have a bear or something that we have from Mum.
Can I just say something?
Of course you can.
You know, with the son, I know Albie, we were in tears one day, me and Grandad, and he came through and he said, he gave us a cuddle and he said, "Don't forget the paradise." and gave us both a cuddle. And he's made a little heart for us, and he's written on it, "Don't forget the paradise," and he's given us that.
Bless him. I'm sort of going to leave this on a last note from Becky, really, because I think it echoes all how we feel. That we will miss her sense of humour, her infectious laugh, and insistence on feeding you. I think they're the memories we have. Before Lee gives a prayer, I'd also like to say that Daniel, Becky's son, managed to say goodbye to a mum yesterday on his own, and he did his well wishes and prayers to not only himself but to his mum Becky, Daniel, and myself. And I wish to thank Daniel for that, because that was done off his own back, and we're very grateful for him to doing that. Sorry to follow that on, Lee. If you would be so kind to do a prayer, and then once the prayer's done, we're going to be putting some videos and some music of my mum, and then we will be ending the meeting. That's right. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. It's a great privilege, and thank you for remembering my mum in the way we wish to remember her, the nice, kind, and loving person she is. Lee.